Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Maya TC and this is 2C TV and your latest update from the woke Western world. Yes, we now have a situation in California, which is now at this point turning into the Communist Independent Republic of California on its own, going completely against the Constitution of the United States and, of course, the will of the people in California, because not everybody in California is woke or extremely regressively liberal, but we now have, thanks to Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, a new policy which is now being added to all the other woke policies to essentially have California as a state taking control of the kids, school kids, from parents. The insanity continues, ladies and gentlemen. So, Gavin Newsom had signed the AB 1955 today, obviously yesterday, which has now banned schools from making rules requiring parental notification if a child identifies as a different gender. Essentially what we have is there's been two areas that have been pushing in California. One has been to go against all these kids and also adults who want to detransition after being pushed when they were younger, because essentially what they've been going around doing is they say to a young teenage boys who happen to be, maybe they're gay and they happen to be camp, they say, well, your behavior is camp, so you should be a girl. Or they go to a teenage girl just because, she's a tomboy and, slightly, well, could be lesbian, could not be a lesbian. They say, well, you have to be a boy. And those who then change their minds, and we have a lot of people who do change their mind after being pushed as kids, which, by the way, to go slightly side note, 2CTV Plus's next documentary will be focusing on the detransitioning kids and adults as well. Not only they've been pushing for this to stop basically these people from detransitioning and discouraging them, now they're saying parents don't need to know. So if a teacher tells a kid that you're now supposed to be a girl, they don't need to tell the parents, and the parents don't have to give permission. There's no consultation going forward. Elon Musk responded saying this is the final straw. Because of this law and the many others that preceded it, attacking both families and companies, SpaceX will now move its headquarters from Hawthorne, California to Starbase, Texas. So Elon Musk himself and his company are now completely moving. He also said that he's been listening to a lot of other families in California who are now, finally, a lot of them have decided this is it. This is the end of their life in California. But again, kids and their well-being is one thing, which has been completely ignored. But the rights of individuals and adults is also being completely restricted. Elon Musk also said, I did make it clear to Governor Newsom about a year ago that laws of this nature would force families and companies to leave California to protect their children. First, we had the first wave of people leaving California because of high taxation. Then we had people leaving California because of net zero. And then we started having them leaving California because of free speech, or regulations against free speech. And then this. Of course, during the days of the China virus and lockdown, there were a lot of people who also escaped. But somehow Gavin Newsom himself, as governor of California, really cares about the well-being of children, saying Gavin is terrified that his son is listening to Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson, calling them micro-cults. So as a parent, when it comes to his own kid, he's concerned and he wants to go after these micro-cults, as he calls them. Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson, apparently they're the dangerous ones. Imagine if Gavin Newsom's son starts watching 2CTV. What will he do then? The mentality, firstly, the hypocrisy of people like Gavin Newsom, who are still, people are saying that he's the one who should be replacing Joe Biden as the presidential candidate in November. I mean, don't be worried. Do not be worried about the Democrats winning, especially if they pick Gavin Newsom. just because he's handsome doesn't mean the Americans are stupid enough to vote for him. Actual middle Americans are not going to be falling for this nonsense. In fact, half of California who didn't have a full voice, that's why they are all leaving California because of this. American flag, if you remember, a few years ago, they decided they were trying to ban the American flag on university campuses, which created massive chaos. So obviously, they now see themselves as separate. And it's going to get to a point, nobody wants this, but it's going to get to a point in the name of some sort of unity for the rest of the US, some states might have to go separate ways, because this is no longer the United States of America. This is disunited and completely divided states of America. Even back then, even 100 years ago, even 200 years ago, even during the Civil War, when you had different states being different to each other, they still had one common set of values, which was protected by the Constitution in Washington, D.C. They still had more in common than not. These days, you can't say that anymore. It's very different. The whole culture has changed. People in California cannot relate to people in Florida or Texas, and this is showing the division. And in case you're thinking that the establishment in DC really care about the United States of America instead of a divided, they're not, because you're either going to get to a point, unfortunately, there will be some sort of civil war again, or because America is always on the edge. It's always been, as a culture, as an experiment, it's always been like that, because there was no political heritage in the United States. People came from Europe mostly. But that also made America a very strong place. The revolutionary mentality. Revolutionary, but to keep peace and family values. Right now, you're either going to get to a point where you will end up having some sort of civil war, which is bad, or before that happens, there has to be some radical changes in terms of the states. And we don't want that either, for the safety of everybody else in those states like California who do not agree with Gavin Newsom. Seems like democratically, they're not able to fight back against people like Newsom and those guys. Tara says, I'm really sorry. I appreciate all your news, but if I'm honest, all this bad news has added on the top of my depression, and it's brought me into dark times. For me and my boys, I'm sad of what's going on. I'm going to unsubscribe from our mental health. We are losing our country and our freedom and identity. It's a sad times ahead. Thank you so much for you and your need. Stay safe and take care. Well, thank you, Tara. And of course, always make sure you look after your own mental health and your well-being. But for those who can cope, unless you really can't cope, like medically diagnosis, that's different. It's important for every single person to watch this, every single person to listen to this. The reason we are in this mess is because people felt it uncomfortable. For decades and decades, they buried their heads in the sand, saying, I don't want to listen to this. I don't want to watch this. This is too sad. It's best if I ignore that it's not actually happening. I'm going to switch off. I'm going to move away. I'm going to just completely close my eyes. Those who can, watch and listen, even if it's uncomfortable. You need to be informed of what's actually happening. Even if it gets sad, even if it gets dark. Of course, if you are in a very specific situation in terms of mental illness and in terms of diagnosis, that's different. Of course, make sure you look after yourself. But everybody else, try to stay strong and fight. Because otherwise, what is the point of living anymore if you're not choosing fighting? Of course, surrendering is not even an option. Fat Controller says that most British citizens don't know that this is going on or probably care or believe. This is the other problem. Again, goes back to the whole category of those who are burying their heads in the sand, the rest of society. And of course, not watching these sort of things is not really going to fix the problem anyway. But there's one thing to mention: those who know already but can't really take it anymore, and those who don't even know. There are a lot of people out there, especially in major cosmopolitan cities like New York, like London, like Berlin, like Paris, who genuinely don't know what's going on, because the mainstream media are shifting the narrative and controlling the narrative in their own interest. They're not telling people about what's happening in California. They're not telling people about Gavin Newsom. They do talk about him, but only in positive terms. You turn on the mainstream media channels, they say, Gavin Newsom, this handsome man from California, could be the next president. But they don't tell you what they are doing to children in California. They're not telling you what they're doing to adults in that state. It's time to leave California. It's done. Because it's not really just about the leadership. It's not really about the governor. It's about all the institutions that have been infiltrated. As we said, for example, the university campuses have been trying to ban the flag. Of course, there was a backlash there, luckily. There have been the schools who are brainwashing kids. The cultural institutions, the media in California, everything. The local media even. Shandy Nicole Beard says, Newsom and his ilk is why I left California. I also now homeschool. But this is the good thing is still about the United States of America is there is a lot of choice compared to if you are in England, compared to if you are in France. There is choice for now. You can leave the state that is being tyrannical. You can do, for example, legally and easily do homeschooling compared to the UK. It's not easy. There's a lot more flexibilities in America for people to also rally the troops and fight back. Whereas here, it's not easy. For example, in America, you are still able to freely organize a pro-American rally. In the United Kingdom, when myself, alongside Tommy Robinson and Lawrence Fox and Carl Benjamin, who are planning all of us to do the next rally in London on the 27th of July, which will be in about 10 days' time, and don't forget to be there, Trafalgar Square from midday. It's not easy. Getting permission, a license to get together is not easy. Getting an agreement with the police is not easy. And getting accepted by society and the institutions is not easy, because even when we're able to actually get people together on the 27th of July in central London, the media are going to call us names, as usual. This is the difference between this so-called kingdom, which was supposed to be keeping us safe from the tyrannical politicians. It's not. Perhaps those who left England and Ireland and other places 200-300 years ago had a point. They left because they wanted to be their own kings and queens. They didn't want to rule over the others. They simply wanted to rule over their own lives and have self-determination. That's why they became American. But back then, we had centralized kings, right? We had King George. We thought modern society, modern democracy. Nope, it's becoming worse. I'd rather deal with Charles II and his realm at the time than live under the rule of technically Charles III, but it's not really him doing it. It's now Parliament. On paper, it's more democratic, isn't it? But is it fair? Is it just? Does it respect the will of the people in this kingdom compared to the days of Charles II, for example? Kathy says, some leave California or other blue states yet bring their old political ways. One LGBT yelled that he was going to make Florida blue. Jacob's people in California. So this is the also interesting point. It's, again, people moving from the blue states to red states is the same problem that we have when it comes to migration from the Middle East to Western Europe. Some are good people leaving California. Some are the red people. They are red, but they live in California, they leave. But some of the blue people are also leaving California because, again, they don't want to stay there because of high taxes, but they have that mentality. They have that liberal, progressive mentality. So when they go to Texas or Florida, they want to change those places. Just like how the Islamic side leave Pakistan because, it's not really easy to live there. But when they come here, they want to turn this country into Pakistan. That's why we are in this mess. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. We're going to take another break and come back later on with more updates. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.